The Fallout universe is a world that is devoid of plumbers, so what if we took one of the most famous plumbers of all time, Mario, and put him into the post-apocalyptic wasteland of Fallout 4? Now the rules for today's challenge are going to be fairly simple. As I am a plumber, I can only use one weapon, and that is going to be the pipe wrench. All other weapons, including pipe guns, will be restricted. Now you could agree that pipe guns should be allowed in a run like this, but that would just be too boring and it wouldn't be very challenging. Also, for this challenge, power armor is banned, as in Fallout 4 it is way too overpowered, and if I had power armor I'd be able to pretty much steamroll the entire game. Other than that, we are playing on normal difficulty, and I do have two mods installed. These are the extended dialogue mod and a removal of blood and gore, since YouTube doesn't like that. Now with all of those rules out of the way, let's get right into the run. Starting off, I decided to create a monstrosity of a character, since I have no idea how to use Fallout 4 character creation, and I couldn't look like Mario. Nora really said,
I love that face.
and then I tried to get my pipes cleaned. The bombs also went off right after that, and entering Vault 111 I admired the amazing pipes, got frozen, and my wife was shot. I woke up, stole my dead wife's ring since it is quite expensive, and here is where our first issue really arises, getting out of Vault 111. This was annoying since I couldn't kill any of the rad roaches since I didn't have a pipe wrench yet, but I was able to lock them behind the doors. I then realized I had forgotten the stim pack, so I went and grabbed them and all the roaches had disappeared. Good job, Bethesda. After leaving the vault, I spoke to Codsworth just so he could clear out Sanctuary, and then set off to get the main weapon of this run. The weapon I am after is the pipe wrench Big Jim, which is found in the Walden Pond. This room does have some raiders in it, but if you run past, you can usually get the wrench quite quickly. On the way there, I was chased by a dog which followed me all the way to the pond and actually killed two of the raiders. Now I'm sure you want to know what Big Jim is. Well, it's just a pipe wrench that has a legendary modifier that has a 20% chance to cripple the target's legs. And boy, in the early game, this thing absolutely slapped. Moving on back to Concord with our new weapon, we cleaned it with ease. By the way, can we just quickly admire this bait and switch behind the door here? And then I agreed to help Preston since he can't shoot to save his life, literally. I also grabbed the minigun off the vertibird with my bare hands since I have such high strength, and then killed everything with a wrench instead of the minigun I just got. The Deathclaw was probably the biggest challenge so far, but just popping in and out of the building worked in the end. But Preston did take the final shot, which very much frustrated me. Moving on from Concord, I assisted at the Drumlin Diner. Wolfgang and Simone were actually quite annoying here, and we took our first and second deaths of many in this run. I sold off some of the ammunition we acquired along the way and went in to help the Brotherhood of Steel. By help, I mean hide in a fenced area and occasionally swing at a few ghouls. Coming off my great power trip, I needed some humbling, so I went to the Fraternal Trading Post, which is probably not what it's called, and I got my ass handed to me by super mutants. Then I actually made my way to Diamond City. Just kidding, on the way I cleaned out Hangman's Alley, using some jet to help. Drugs are really going to be an essential part of this run. As such, I would like to announce the next Mario game coming out. This game is going to be called Stoned Mario's Odyssey for Crack, and it's all about how Mario is looking for his next fix. Continuing forward, I grabbed a guard's clothes outside of Diamond City who wouldn't be needing them anymore, put them on, and then actually arrived at Diamond City. Now whenever I arrive at Diamond City, I usually like to do a little bit of power leveling just to prepare us for the later stages of the game. So first on our list here, I went and helped Shane with his water issues. I thought if I polluted the water myself it would let me skip the quest, but that was just wrong. I did get annoyed looking for the last piece of trash, though eventually we did complete the quest. Next on my list was dealing with Abbott's paint problems. Now as I murder some of the raiders at the hardware town just to make paint, I want to talk about the channel. I have made one previous video on here before where I beat Fallout New Vegas as Mike Tyson, and I'm hoping this video is a massive upgrade over that video. Also, I am trying to make this more interesting by writing a script as I go on, rather than at the end, so I believe this video is a lot smoother as well. If you do want me to make more videos about Fallout challenge runs, especially without a 9-month gap, do subscribe to the channel, and if this video does very well, I will make more content in a shorter time. Now back on track, I got the green paint and painted the wall for Abbott, who gave me a nice reward of caps, and I got another level worth of experience points. Before heading out to save Valentine, I did decide to upgrade the wrench and put a nice nail in between just to rip out some eyeballs. This upgrade was also really good since it allowed us to deal extra damage to targets with armor, and since the wrench is a blunt weapon, it is able to just rip through a bunch of armor now with this small little upgrade. Next on the agenda was to save Nicky Boy. Arriving at Swan's Pond, I thought since everything has been fairly easy for now, why not try to kill Swan? And would you believe it, but the wrench actually won. I'm not sure if it was a glitch, but after a few swings, Swan just gave up on moving, and I got a relatively free kill. The closest to death I came in this fight was from the radiation in the pond, but I decided I would fast travel back to Diamond City and cure myself before I tried to take on the Triggerman. Now after that,
Pretty amazing display.
I decided to up the difficulty to hard since everything has just gone too good, and it would have been a very boring video if I beat everything super easily. The Triggermen in Park Street Station were honestly a breeze as well. I didn't die at all going to grab Nick, and the Triggermen were dealing such low damage, and with the pipe wrench dealing fairly good damage back, I was able to pretty much run through them all. Even Dino only took about 5 total swings until he went down. I died once leaving the station due to some overpowered Triggermen who took me out in 3 shots, and at this point I also noticed that for some reason some of these Triggermen just had crazy high HP, and some of them would just take 1 shot to kill. I'm not sure why that happens, and I've noticed it in a few other runs I've done, so if you know, please do tell me why in the comments. Skinny Malone was the last chap in the way of me getting out of the bloodbath that I had created, and he was actually quite tough. I died once more, but after some drugs and a few stimpaks, he did go down. I decided that before we go back to Diamond City, I would go and speak to the Railroad. The Railroad are going to be the faction which I am siding with today, just because I think a strange pipe-wielding murderous maniac fits right into the riffraff there, and with all the little weird characters in the Railroad. Not to mention the Railroad HQ has some mean pipes. Back at Diamond City, I discussed the case with Nick Valentine and found out, shocker, it's Kellogg's cornflakes and the Institute who kidnapped my son. From there, I needed to get access to Kellogg's house, so the best way to do it was not to bribe the mayor, but instead I cleaned his pipes. I was quite upset that in Kellogg's house I couldn't find any cornflakes, but I did find a secret Epstein-inspired room with cigars. I even saw Stephen Hawking in there, and I made Dogmeat snip the cigar that I had found, and off he went to find Kellogg. I decided to make my own way to Fort Hagen after Mr. Hawking had told me where to go, and yet I still managed to get a tad lost, also finding the world's poorest trader while I was on my way there.
Oh my god, bro. Oh, hell no, man. What the fuck?
Eventually, I did stumble upon Fort Hagen, and the synths here were an absolute nightmare. Half the time, I would get ignited by lasers, or there would be some synth which was really a god at blocking attacks. After the first floor, I had no stimpaks left, and I had to restore my HP with the blood packs, which somehow healed me. I'm still pretty confused on how that worked. The second floor was also a joke, especially the first 3 synths, who must have been masters at martial arts since they could block every single attack I threw at them. I also proceeded to get demolished by a synth who blocked my 1000 attacks and almost punched me to death. After the absolute nuisance of synths, I made my way into Kellogg's fight and bludgeoned him because once again, he had no cornflakes, or maybe it was the rage I felt from all the drugs I took, but I can quit whenever I want. Don't say I'm addicted, I'm not an addict. I went back to Diamond City for the 6th time to discuss my findings with Nick and Piper. My next goal was to get access to Ballistic Weave. Quick end spoiler here, I did not end up unlocking Ballistic Weave, but continuing on, I went and helped Deacon walk up a ramp and 5 meters to talk to some guy that told us the switchboard, the old railroad base, had been completely overrun with synths. Going into the switchboard itself honestly wasn't the worst. I did have some trouble with the first large group of synths, but luckily I didn't die. Moving on, I indulged in Jet once more to wipe out the next large group of synths, and this mission also had some extra importance. Since we cannot use power armor, I needed either a lot of Radex or a hazmat suit for the glowing sea. Just by coincidence, there are 2 hazmat suits available in this mission, which I nabbed for our trip into the glowing sea very soon. Back at Railroad HQ, I named myself Fixer, and was officially accepted into the Railroad after the epic tale that Deacon had told about us. Continuing with the initial goals of getting ballistic weave, I agreed to help Dr. Carrington with the delivery of a synth. I also got to try out the secret tunnel behind the railroad, which I literally never knew existed. The escorting of the synths was not too bad. I did make a tactical retreat behind a door at some point to let a super mutant suicider blow up on high rise, which worked out quite well for me, but probably not as good for him, though that really isn't my problem. Once the escorting of the synth was done, I did need some more stimpaks, so I looted High-Rise's house. Taking a break, which would be a permanent break from getting ballistic weave, I went to the memory lounger and had a chat with Dr. Amari.
Could you say that like Dr. Frankenstein?
Ego, fetch me the brain. No?
No, I will not.
After I was told to sit in the memory lounge, it actually broke, saying I was still in combat, and the only way I could fix it was to fully restart the game. Once again, thank you very much, Bethesda. After looking through Kellogg's memories and to my disappointment not finding any cornflakes, I made out for the glowing sea, where we had learned there is a hermit crab living in a cave. My plan here was to just pop as much Radix as possible until I had to use the hazmat suit, because the hazmat suit, while it's really good at stopping radiation, gives literally no protection from enemies. The glowing sea wasn't going to be easy. Between the constant radiation everywhere, almost everything was absolutely whacked. Not to mention there were rad scorpions at every turn. My plan for pretty much all the rad scorpions was to hit them until they were crippled since they couldn't go underground, and then I would just run away. There were also 3 different variants of death claws which I came across while I was in the glowing sea. First, you had your murderous death claws. These ones pretty much always killed me. Then you had flying death claws, which must have continued to evolve from the radiation, which somehow managed to shock me. And finally, we had crawling death claws, which gave me XP. Despite all that, I did manage to reach Virgil's cave, and I discussed the plans about the signal interceptor with him. From Virgil's cave, I was sent to kill a Corsa, and of course, get it? It was not that simple. There are also a bunch of gunners here as well. The gunners were extremely annoying to deal with and were probably the biggest challenge we've faced so far. There were a few reasons for this. First, pretty much every single gunner took a minimum of 3 hits to go down, and they also dealt a ton of damage to me. This also really began to mark when the wrench lost a lot of its power. Second, the gunners all had energy weapons, and because I didn't have any real good energy armor at this point, I was just getting destroyed. The final real big issue is that one gunner had a missile launcher. Coupling this with the fact I had just come from the glowing sea and I decided I did not need to get more medical supplies, this whole experience absolutely sucked. I died probably 8 times just trying to get past one hallway, and the only way I ended up getting through the gunners was waiting for the gunners on the other side of the hallway to walk down, and then I would take them out. Finally, I would make a mad dash across the bridge for my life. The first time I did this, the missile launcher gunner still blew me open because I took the wrong turn, and after that I didn't have too much trouble getting past the other groups. I used Jet and Buff out on Osama bin Laden on the 2nd floor, and he went down in one swing, eliminating probably the biggest threat from this building. As for the Corsa, he was extremely tanky and used multiple stimpaks, and he also went invisible. I did get lucky though, I was able to disarm him and I stole his gun before he got it back, so he couldn't really damage me. In the end, I broke both of his invisible legs, and the Corsa went down after probably another 30 swings. After we looted the Corsa's body and grabbed the chip from his brain, I went to the Railroad HQ and got the chip decoded by my fellow enhancement user, Tinker Tom. I also went back to the Hermit Crab and got our signal interceptor plans as well. I decided I would build the signal interceptor at the Starlight Drive-In, as Pam wanted me to clear it out so it could become a safe house. This way I'd be able to kill 2 birds with 1 stone as we moved towards Ballistic Weave, which once again we never got, and also were able to find a place to build the interceptor. Building the signal interceptor would have been quite easy, but I was missing 1 sensory doohickey, so off to Hubris Comics I went. Hubris wasn't the worst. Most ghouls took around 2 swings, and for the glowing one I just used a Radix and he went down quite easily. I did get lost trying to access the room with the sensor, but eventually I found the key and grabbed our item. Back at the Starlight Drive-In, I built the signal interceptor to try and get in the Institute, and while I was about to do the most important mission of the whole entire Commonwealth, a rad scorpion showed up and I just stood waiting for about a minute for it to be killed. This was honestly though quite a funny experience. After successfully teleporting into the Institute, I spoke to Father, who was quite pleased to see me, and then I killed him. After learning you can't beat the Railroad questline with Father dead, I reloaded an old save and actually spoke to him. I also loaded up the holotape which was given to me by the beloved Tinker Tom and spoke to some of the leaders in the Institute. While I was in the biology section, I thought I may as well try to get the FEV serum since I have never ever really helped Virgil. Another endgame spoiler here, I never ever returned to him. The Assaultron inside the FEV lab did try to beam me, but I once again made a tactical retreat behind a door, which the beam could not penetrate. Then, with the assistance of Jet, I took out what was left of the Assaultron and grabbed the serum. After meeting Patriot, now known as Liam, he had a plan to help 13 synths escape the Institute, but he needed me to give him a username and password from the surface. Speaking to Desdemona confirmed that there was a password located at the Cambridge Polymer Labs, and I'll be totally clear here, I never have ever understood the puzzle for the labs, so I just hid in the vents, hopped into the security room, grabbed the password, and escaped the labs. Returning to Desdemona with the password, she explained her new plan. Instead of helping 13 synths escape, we would release all the synths and even end the Institute once and for all. To do this, the synths would need to fight for their freedom, and so a plan was hatched between a synth leader, Z114, where I would stash some weapons and help kill a group of guards. These guards that I had to take out were actually pretty annoying and very strong, and almost killed me a few times. I did get lucky with something exploding midway through the fight and taking about half of their health away, and once I dealt with the guards in the mine and stashed the weapons, I was instructed to keep following the Institute's plan until it was time to strike. Following the plans of the Institute meant I needed to reclaim a rogue synth, which had become the leader of a raider gang in Libertalia. The first time I tried to get this synth back, I got destroyed by the raiders because, like usual, I thought I don't need medical supplies and I had literally no stimpaks on me. So I decided I would make a few quick stops. First in Diamond City, I bought all the stimpaks I could and stole a few from the losers who left their medical items exposed in the open. And then I went to the Colonial Tap House to start the Diamond City Blues quest, which would get me a ton of drugs, money, and more stimpaks. Killing Cook, I stole his key and went to Ludo's house. Cook had a great amount of drugs and also some stimpaks in here sitting around. His home also had a secret defense called Bethesda Magic, where I walked straight through a wall. With the newly acquired stimpaks and substances, I went back to the raider gang at Libertalia, and it was much smoother. First, I was attacking from the backside. This wasn't on purpose, but it did mean I had way less raiders to deal with. The next great part was since the backside was closer to the main ship, I was able to pretty much swim right there. On the main ship, not everything was smooth sailing. I know, my puns are great, and the raider with a fat man decided he really wanted to kill me, and it was worth not only killing himself, but the whole local population for it. In the end, after 2 deaths, a VATS critical made short work of him. Up on the top deck, I used the recall code on the synth leader, and then played hole in the wall with one of the raiders. Back at the Institute, Father congratulated me for reclaiming the synth and provided me with a nice quarters that had an amazing shower for me to try, without any running water mind you. Father then instructed me of a battle at Bunker Hill that was going to take place. Now, being the filthy, lying, devious, double-sided scumbag plumber I am, I told the railroad about this ambush, and as Desdemona instructed me, I killed the courser which was escorting me. I ended up going through the whole entire Bunker Hill like an idiot, since I didn't know all I had to do was kill the courser. I even tried to talk with the synths as if they would just disappear when I was done. Father was not very pleased with the result of the Bunker Hill attack, and so of course the next logical step would be to announce you were going to die and make the person who failed you the next in line to direct the Institute. Needless to say, the board of directors was not happy, but hey, that's also not my problem. Now, at the directors meeting, it was brought to my attention the Institute needed power, and for this, Ali and I would need to storm a mass fusion building to get a beryllium agitator while fighting off a bunch of Brotherhood soldiers. At mass fusion, the Brotherhood were not the worst. Most of the scribes went down in 2 to 3 hits, but the knights could take a real beating. Some of these power armored behemoths took 15 to 20 hits just to take down, not to mention once their weapon was knocked out, they were just blocking me the entire time. The first group of soldiers was probably the hardest, funny enough, and from that point on it was quite easy just to plow through with stimpaks and jet. On the elevator ride down, the elevator lift was shut off, and subsequently the Brotherhood ambushed us. Like I said before, these groups were quite easy, so after a little scuff, I repowered the elevator and moved to the beryllium agitator. In the beryllium agitator room, I popped on my hazmat suit and grabbed the agitator, and then what I believe would be the hardest fight of this whole entire playthrough ensued. Whenever you grab the agitator, a sentry bot and 2 assaultrons will spawn, to make your day miserable. The sentry bot was the first obstacle, so after pumping myself full of every enhancement I owned and continued puffs of jet, it eventually went down. The sentry bot did almost kill me on a few occasions. As for the assaultrons, which are sometimes arguably harder than the sentry bot, they were an absolute pushover. The pipe wrench crippled them both in like 3 swings, which was extremely lucky, and when they were about to launch the death beam, guess what I did? I made a tactical retreat yet again, so Ali could take the blow. Back at the Institute, I gave Ali the beryllium agitator, and then I was tasked with grabbing an engineer for Institute purposes. The gunners protecting him were still just as annoying as before, which really showed how the wrench doesn't become much stronger the further we go on. With our new engineer secured, Father tasked me with recording a message about the peaceful intentions of the Institute. I will just let you listen to my choice of words and know I was pissing myself laughing the whole entire time.
We have no desire to interfere in the unimportant details of your pathetic existences. We simply insist that you do not interfere with Institute operations. To do so would result in your complete annihilation. Rest easy. Know that the future is out of your control.
Now, after putting the Commonwealth at ease, I went to Diamond City to enhance their radio with the button thingies and dial thingies to broadcast my ASMR level relaxation across the Commonwealth. After the radio was set up, I powered up the nuclear generator at the Institute and officially made it into the end game. This was the point where the story took a turn back towards the railroad, as Z114 informed me that the Brotherhood had discovered Railroad HQ and was planning to attack. After rushing to the Railroad headquarters with fast travel, I warned Desdemona of the Brotherhood attack, and surprise, 10 seconds later they attacked. How shocking. The first wave of Brotherhood troops was extremely tough, as one knight had a minigun or a Gatling laser depending on your luck, and needless to say I was killed a few times here. I did manage to clear out the soldiers once, but didn't know the power armor explodes, and so I died again. After clearing out these same Brotherhood soldiers one more time, Desdemona refused to talk to me until I reloaded a save after killing her. After actually speaking to Desdemona, she tasked me with single-handedly clearing the rest of the Brotherhood without any support. If this was a real situation, in what world would you tell a fat man with a wrench to go and fight an army of people with miniguns, lasers, and tank suits all by himself? Of course, this is not the real world, so I pumped myself full of time-slowing magic puffs to clear all the Brotherhood members in the catacombs. The final fight was a massive brawl in the church, where 8 Brotherhood members all died to a man on drugs with a wrench. After Crackhead Mario saved the railroad, it was time to initiate Plan Red Glare and end the Brotherhood once and for all. The first step of the plan was to steal a vertibird from Cambridge Police Station, but first let us just admire the death of Knight Rice because no one has ever liked him. Once again outside the station, there are a whole lot of tanky Brotherhood soldiers trying to kill me, but like before, some jet solves the issue. Now inside the station is where a real massacre ensued. I first started with some low level scribes and then got jump scared by a whole squad of Brotherhood inside this one room. It was actually quite fun being able to one tap like 10 enemies in a row, and I can say it was a nice break compared to the usual 20 swings it would take to kill one enemy. Once the station was clear, we defended the vertibird, which really meant destroy 2 Brotherhood knights, and then off we went for the pre-win. Now this is where the plan becomes interesting. I was given 3 explosive devices to place on the fuel tanks of the Brotherhood's massive airship. All I had to do was not get caught and I could successfully finish the mission and get away unharmed. But who would have guessed? I was discovered and I had to make a mad dash for the exit. I was killed one time by Elder Maxim, but after loading in and popping some stim packs, the issue was solved. Flying away in the vertibird, I watched as the whole Brotherhood caught fire and crashed into the ground. And Victorian losers. Now it was time to prepare for the final battle against the Institute, but first I hit up every single vendor I could for stim packs, and we finished with about 58 of them. I could have purchased way more, but I knew I didn't really need that many stim packs for the final quest. After preparing and teleporting right into the Institute, I needed to clear the relay for Z114 to relay Desdemona and also her pitiful allies into the Institute as well. These synths were actually taking a great deal of blows from the wrench, but like usual, eventually they did go down. Z114 then ported Desdemona and her 2 pitiful agents to take the whole entire most technologically advanced thing in the Commonwealth down. The synths further in this facility did not prove to be too troublesome, taking 4 to 5 hits per, but they eventually went down as well. At one point, I accidentally activated a sentry bot who, funny enough, did help clear out the last of the synths. Moving into the bioscience area, I once again channeled my inner scrapper and scrapped all the synths, including the gorilla, who I used a critical on for no reason. Once the biosector was safe, we moved into the main atrium, where again a bunch of synths tried to stop myself and now one railroad agent, but they too fell to the might of our wrench. The last step before the reactor was to end the lockdown at Father's quarters, where I initiated the evacuation alarm and also lifted the lockdown. I also then decided I would put Sean out of his misery. Making my way into the reactor was quite easy, clearing out the 2 synths blocking the door and then just sprinting past all the Institute members and placing the detonator on the reactor. Of course, this was only possible thanks to Jet and Psycho I had acquired before coming to the Institute. After being teleported out, I agreed to take Sean, and Tinker Tom took us a safe distance away from the Institute, and I pushed the detonator, proving that yes, you can beat Fallout 4 as Mario. Now, what about my post-run thoughts? Honestly, I thought this challenge would be way harder. I was so surprised by the strength of the pipe wrench, and even though it did start to struggle towards the end of the game, the chems I got from the Diamond City Blues quest just carried me through. I can say confidently though that I did enjoy the run, and it was still quite tough to deal with some sections of the game. Now, I would like to say to everyone who made it to the end, please do consider subscribing to the channel if you want to help support more videos just like this one, and I also want to give a massive thanks to Bethesda for making Fallout 4 glitchy as hell so I could make jokes about it. So now I just want to thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.